Okay, everybody, let's get ready to vote. All right. All right, where do we start? First start is that we have to revote the one that we did quickly, that was called the Macintosh Arts Bill because it had an amendment. So move as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. One down. Are all these roughly in here?
No,
Not at all.
not mine. Couple.
Okay.
Actually,
All right.
I don't think any of mine are in there.
Let's start with the Senate bills. See how far we get on some of these. Senate Bill 153.
Sit that one you're holding until you hear the rest of the homeowners bills
Okay, when are we seeing this?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. So that's a hold until we get the House bills, homeowners bills? Okay. All right. Unfortunately, Senator Young is not here, but he is listening in. And his chief of staff is here. Awesome. Okay, so we will get his vote added on to the end after our voting. And we will take up 155.
Senate Bill 155 is a bill dealing with the state lottery. It's the instant ticket lottery machines for fraternal organizations bill. If you recall, I believe the committee's had this bill for a number of years now, but the bill would extend the ITML machines that are currently allowed at veterans halls to include the fraternal organizations, so the Elks Lodges, the Moose, those types of organizations. The counties would still be limited to the Western Shore counties, the same thing that we have with the ITML program. And the program would run pretty much the same as the ITML program, other than the charitable purpose wouldn't go towards the Veterans Trust Fund. It would go towards a housing program in DHCD that would be established to help, I believe it's homeless veterans. So it would still be sort of consistent with the helping veterans. But the idea is to allow the fraternal organizations to have the ITML machines.
Okay. This was part of the work group. This bill's had a hard life. And it still may have a hard life. But I'm going to suggest that we move favorable on it. We've heard it, we've worked around it, for years. I think it deserves to move along in the process from my perspective, and we'll see where it goes.
Move favorable.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a question. I wasn't on the work group that dealt with this particular bill this session. Was there any conversation, is it like where it's so specific to a certain jurisdiction, we don't believe it'll have any negative impact on those entities that already exist? I don't know if that came up or
The other veterans halls?
or other gaming.
Other gaming establishments?
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know whether it'll siphon. What you're talking about is taking players away
Yeah,
from
yeah.
other gaming establishments to go play at the Elks Lodge. I don't know.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that because I didn't know what the conversation was, and I know that there had been some probably historic testimony to that. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Eckert?
I think it's, at least in our area with our veterans organization that already have these, it's pretty much a local group to participate. If people want to go over to the casinos, they do that. It's a separate trip too, so.
I mean, you think about it, there's a number of organizations out there. Of course, you'd need a facility, and not every organization has their own facility. They might meet in a school or a church or something like that, and I don't think that they would function well in those circumstances. They need to be in their own kind of place. It has its own limiting factors, is what I'm suggesting.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not sure I answered Senator Griffith's question correctly. The work group did hear testimony from various entities that currently do have gaming, that they felt that it would siphon players away. But the work group did hear testimony to that effect when they were considering everything.
Okay. Any further comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. And Senator Young from afar is adding his vote with a thumbs up after many years of carrying this bill. So, okay, and we'll wait till he's back to get that to the floor. No? No. Okay, well, we'll see what we're going to do. Okay. All right, the next one is another hold. So this is this corporations one, and as you all know, I think, I hope and I think the committee has some sympathy to doing something on this, that there's some logic to doing, but it's going to take some work. And quite frankly, we've got to get through this week. Maybe we'll get to it towards the end of the week, but I don't think we have the time right now to do it. We're trying to get bills moved, and I'm not sure this is going to be it at the moment. But I really do want to do something with this. I think it's, I think the fee is way too high, particularly for companies that are just starting out in their first couple of years. So maybe if we can, hopefully, maybe we'll get a couple of us together and try to nail something down in the next couple of days. Okay? I see you're very anxious to be involved with that, Senator Eckert.
I am, and is there a cross file?
It would probably be, yeah, it would, I don't know that it's moving. It's probably the speaker's bill for the administration. It's an administration bill.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
What's that?
I'd like to participate with that.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna skip the next one for now. Let's see, okay. 507, I think we have an amendment for this, is that right?
Yes.
Work group worked on this?
The sponsor.
Sponsor has an amendment.
Yep.
Well, do you wanna, either way, whoever
Yeah.
wants to describe it.
It's just, we turned it into a study,
Okay,
and really, that's what it is, what it comes down to. We're gonna learn more about it from the federal side and from the state side, I guess, of how they can do this. So,
very good.
Senator?
Okay. Senator?
Who's going to do the study?
Yeah. Study from Secretary of Transportation and Secretary of General Services regarding construction contracts and that have various price adjustment provisions and how many times modifications have been done for like materials costs. So I think the concept that the bill has introduced was the fluctuation in prices of materials.
Right.
And so the idea is to get information from those two units.
The study is going to be done by the departments,
Study's gonna be done by, yeah,
and then report back to us on what they come up with.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, thank you,
Well,
thank you.
just to say, I mean, when we were meeting with them, they did have three different ways how they could get a contract and move forward. And one of them was pretty much something
Yeah, they
that we
had-
want to put in place.
Yeah, it's called a fixed price with adjustment, and so
Yeah.
the reports are focused on getting information about the utilization of those.
Great, thank you,
Yep.
Senator.
And if we could, I'd like to move favorable. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. As amended. Very good.
One other thing, the bill was, as introduced, was emergency. The amendments give it July 1 effective date with a sunset.
Very good. 683, I've been asked about this bill a couple times. Let's see,
I bet more than that.
let's see if we have any interest in this and what you might want to do.
So there's no reprint on your desk, so look at it from your computer. It basically establishes renewable energy for nonprofit organizations loan program within MEA. It does have a 3-year mandated $5 million amount. The purpose of the program would be to provide financial assistance for zero-interest loans to nonprofit organizations who purchase and install renewable energy systems. The bill sets out application procedures, approval procedures, what the loans can be used for. A borrower has to contribute 10%. It's repayable according to a schedule that MEA establishes.
Is it revolving?
And that's it. It should be revolving, yes. Yeah, it would be revolving with a 3-year infusion, so a total of $15 million, but then a revolving loan thereafter, subject to whatever the repayment, period would be that MEA establishes.
So, if there's any interest in this, I would suggest that we would look at a much reduced amount that we put into this revolving fund and maybe $500,000 and see if anybody is interested in it.
Works for me.
How does anybody else feel about it? Thoughts? I mean, look, we're doing everything we can, I think, to try to encourage solar.
I don't think that's a bad idea. Just put a little bit into it to see if it's gonna work.
And get a report out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, setting up a program and then you see how it works and then
Yeah.
next administration.
I mean, I don't know, it seems like, I mean, the goal of $15 million sounds like a heck of a lot of money for putting together programs like that. I can't imagine, I'm just having a hard time stretching my head around.
Is it limited to small nonprofits? It's just nonprofits, right?
It is nonprofits, right?
They're like big, there are a lot of big nonprofits.
There are big nonprofits out
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually think, we tend to think about the for-profit sector as being a bigger percentage of energy use and everything else
Right.
than it is. So I think the basic idea makes sense, so I think starting small is a good idea.
What department does fall under when put
MEA.
10% in or you pay 10%? They should have skin in the game, I definitely agree with that. But who handles the fund once you start?
MEA,
MES?
Yep.
MEA.
MEA.
MEA, yeah, Energy Administration, okay.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting then is amending it for $500,000, just for 1 year, to put into this revolving loan fund, and to see what kind of reporting we get out of and the interest that might be out in the public on this. And I think I have seconds, so all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So, 724.
Senate Bill 724 would exempt payments by governmental agencies from the gross receipts tax on short-term leases or rentals of heavy equipment property. And it also repeals the requirement that people report how much is being paid in this tax. The idea, when it was put in place in 2010, was to try and calculate the difference between a gross receipts tax on heavy equipment and the personal property tax that it was replacing at the time. The reporting and the calculation has proved de minimis, and I think the idea is to just get rid of the reporting requirements because the amounts of money involved have been so low. But and then the meat of the bill is to not require the tax to be paid on rental payments paid by state, federal, and local governments when they rent heavy equipment. The House passed the cross-file favorably. That was House Bill 795.
Senator?
What is defined as heavy equipment? Like, what types are they talking about?
So we define, heavy equipment is defined to be construction, earth moving, or industrial equipment that is mobile, including any attachment for the heavy equipment. It includes a self-propelled vehicle that is not designed to be driven on a highway, and industrial electrical generation equipment, industrial lift equipment, industrial material handling equipment, and other similar industrial equipment.
Okay, thank you. I like it.
Okay. Senator?
What's the fiscal note?
There really isn't. The amount of payments coming, so there aren't, not all the counties impose the personal property tax, or impose this tax.
It's gross receipts.
And then the amount of governmental payments, is de minimis.
Okay.
There's in Exhibit 1, you can see how much money is actually coming in from this tax. It's just not a lot of money.
Okay, that's fine, that's all I mean. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Oh, and the cross file, while you're here, House Bill 795, same posture.
Okay. All those in favor? All right, we're gonna switch off the list for a second. And we have two bills that we need to get done for early present.
Yep. Start with school construction or the other one?
That's fine.
Okay.
Either's fine.
We're gonna start with House Bill 1290. This is the school construction bill you just heard today. Kim is handing out a reprint. 1290, House Bill. It's not on the list.
We heard it today. It was one of two Macintosh bills today.
Yep. The reprint you have does have some notes in the margins, just to help walk you through it. Beginning on bill page 4, this deals with the Prince George's County authorization to do their own innovative school construction financing projects. This deals with the contents of the MOU. Same thing with the next couple of pages, again, just clarifying the intent, that this amount would be provided to Prince George's County, so that's all just kind of technical cleanup. Page 6 of the bill, you'll recall in Built to Learn, there was a list of regulations that the IAC had to adopt. This clarifies one that they need to also adopt a regulation dealing with an appeals process. Next page. Also at the top, this is again codifying their current practices to how they establish the local and state cost share. The first substantive new item in this bill is on page 7. This establishes a new set of opportunities for local schools to get an increase in the state share for school construction programs, specifically for schools at certain concentration of poverty levels. And then on page 8, it would be if the school's maintenance, if they have good or superior maintenance effectiveness assessments, they would get an increase in the state share. Also, if it's a net zero school. And then lines 14 through 19 is a little like backwards in the brain kind of thinking for me, but basically if you're a school project and you're trying to get approval to expand, this sets a floor of what what available seats would need to be in adjacent schools before the IAC could turn you down for that expansion. Then on the next few pages deals with the inspections that the IAC must conduct. It's adding various things that the inspections must include. And then on page 10, the amendment in the House says that if they find during these inspections for items 1 through 6, which is temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, acoustic, lead, and asbestos, leads to needing to close the school, that then there needs to be a plan on how to address the issue and to prioritize funding. On page 11, this just talks about some changes to the asset library and the use of facility assessment data. Then the next substantive part is page 13. This deals with the fund that I believe was testified to today in terms of being able to forward fund things. It does allow a school to access this to also forward fund the state portion of it, obviously being repaid within 5 years of actually receiving the state funding. Within this program on page 14, it establishes funding levels for that priority fund, or for the forward funding fund. The $40 million conforms to the governor's budget, and then it would have an additional $20 million in 2024, and then $10 million for the next couple of years after that. Let's see, next page deals with Healthy Schools Facility Fund. This also would add money to that school construction program. There are a couple provisions here that looks like there's no changes made to an underlined section. That's because a couple of sections were accidentally repealed in the Built to Learn Act. They never technically went away, but we just need to technically put them back. The changes on page 17 for the priority fund just aligns to current timing, and then it establishes a new program which should look familiar. It's been a bill the last couple of years. And that's incorporated in here in terms of providing an incentive, again, additional state share for having projects that have lower cost of ownership. And then finally on page 19, there's some tweaks to the city for the 21st Century Schools program. There is an agreement as to how much the city would pay versus how much the school system. The agreement, this just kind of alters that, but it's just putting it in code for what that agreement is. Then there's a couple tweaks in terms of the use of the ETF, that the priority is for the Built to Learn program. This came about after the first sale of the Built to Learn bonds, and doing this would ease the bond purchasers' minds. And then that's also the case for page 21. Page 22. You can see here, there's been a general goal of always doing $400 million in the CIP program for school construction. This raises it to $450. At the bottom of the page would be a new amendment that you all would be adding on to clarify that those incentives where the state would pay, their state share would increase, that increase would apply to both the normal CIP, the Healthy Schools, and the Built to Learn, which are the three programs that use a state and local cost share. And then some other tweaks on the final page in terms of requiring that the IAC update the per student square footage. And you can see the house added pre-kindergarten space. Also, with particular Baltimore City, they've been accruing additional bottle tax than estimated. And you'll remember that was part of the agreement that they would use bottle tax to pay for the 21st Century Schools. That's accrued, so this was just a one-time $10 million infusion into that. The next one clarifies that this bill is prospective, and that is the bill with proposed amendments for the Senate.
Okay. Senator.
I was approached by the Prince George's folks on amendments that they wanted. I don't know whether they're in here or not.
I'm not aware.
Okay. Senator?
Yes. I do know that the majority of the amendments that were from Prince George's County were adopted on the House side, so they're in the bill, I believe, in the posture we got it.
I think there's some other amendment they want. And I have been going back and forth with the IAC to try to clarify this. So unless there's some critical need to do this today, I'd like to have a chance to nail that down to be sure we got it right.
To try to get an answer.
That's what I'm gonna do.
As soon as possible.
I will, okay.
Like, because we do need to get this one moving.
Okay,
Like even during this time frame.
you want me to do it during the meeting, okay.
Can I
I'll call him back.
see you outside?
Yeah, sure, yeah, I'll call him.
Okay? Yes, Senator?
Went through this pretty quick. I have a quick question. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we changed the, school construction program somewhat, that if you're in the bottom quintile, does this do anything to that?
It does not, it is on bill page 7 unamended, so that remains law,
Page 7.
lines 10 through 21.
That stays in?
Yep,
Good. We haven't built a new school for 30 years. In the process, trying to do one now.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna hold, Senator Eckert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Erica, have we addressed the issues that the school folks sent in? Like the whole issue of inspecting the schools? Was that terminology changed?
well, I don't know what their specific complaints
Okay,
were, but
it was in
page,
testimony.
pages 8 through 9 through 10 all deal with specifying inspections as well as closing. So if that solves it for them, then yes, it's in here. I don't know of any additional issues.
Yeah, there was concern about having them inspect versus an official formal inspection over all those issues.
Are we good here? Senator?
Just says the language in the bill requires IAC to inspect each of those, but that's concerning because a true inspection of each of these would be required on-site monitors to watch those conditions, and I don't think that's a provision in it.
You mean like live feedback of the conditions? Like on a,
Like people to be there. Yeah, the IAC just recommended some reporting requirements in place, so it may be just to change the wording on that. But I'll look at it. I was just scanning what they had put in to see what their concerns were, because they have a number of concerns that were voiced.
Any more questions on this right now? Hoping to wrap this up by the end of the day. Senator Rosapap's out making a call for his county. If you're gonna try to do anything, we gotta figure it out today. Senator King's gonna take it to the floor tomorrow.
Oh, great. It's all right, and Melanie makes a good wingman for me, I'll tell you.
All right. Just quickly, the next bill on the sheet is Highway User Fund. I just want to let everyone know that that did become part of the discussion and the negotiation for the big tax package and all the budget stuff that's happening. By the way, tomorrow we should be getting the rest of, a supplemental with the rest of the fenced items included in that. That should sort of bring to fruition almost everything that's included, except for the fact that we did agree that we would move forward with the highway user money. I think there's still gonna be a little more refining of the numbers, but the bottom line is that, if you recall, going to a 20% for the locals was one option, and I think that's where we're going to head. We're going to amend Senator McCrae's bill to do that once we get the actual numbers figured out.
You know what, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
You got a local delegation bill that I think is like caught up in this whole highway user revenue. That got nothing to do with highway user revenue, but how we do like our police or something like that. And I just caught it, that it was in this
Whose is
committee.
it?
It's a Baltimore City administration bill.
Oh,
I think
it's
it's
a city
Senate
bill.
Bill 762, but it has nothing to do with like what we're talking about, but the title of it says highway user revenue.
I got you.
Yeah.
So you're ready to see that one voted, I guess, we haven't?
Yeah, it moved out of the House, and I just didn't catch that it didn't pass out of my own committee.
Okay. All right, we'll just put that on the list, we'll make sure that we get to that. Now we're gonna go back again to, another, blueprint bill. What,
While he's out,
what's that?
you want
I was trying, that's why I was stalling there for a minute. So he was gonna come back in the room. Can we see how,
Can you get my mic, please, for a second? I can't turn my own mic off. Can you turn it off?
rolling, so now we're on to, 1450, is that right?
Yep,
House
that's
Bill
right.
1450.
All right, this is also being handed out.
Don't ask me how I remembered that. This is an important bill.
All right, so House Bill 1450. This is a reprint of some proposed Senate amendments, one of which is to roll the maintenance of effort bill in from last week into this bill. I'll reach that part when I get there. Again, it's marked up to walk you through it. This one does have less going on than the last one.
Hallelujah.
The first page, you'll see a change to basically the blueprint for Maryland's Future Fund that is there to assist with funding all of the blueprint. When you originally passed it, it included digital sales as a source of revenue. This would delete that, more on that later. The next one talks about, on page 3, talks about with concentration of poverty, there were some per pupil, there was a personnel grant for it, and then you included last time that it could be used for the arts as well if there's an excess. This expands that by referring to additional COMAR provisions for other general ed, as well as extends that for a couple more years. When the blueprint first passed, there was discussion of an indicator to potentially replace the free and reduced price meal as a proxy for poverty. That's the neighborhood poverty indicator. This makes that report due. I'm potentially using that by this December. Here's where Senate Bill 640 starts being embedded in here, which part of your handouts is a chart that I hope lays out what's going on clearly. So maybe we just shift to that because the language accomplishes what's on the chart. So a reminder that there's two current law that this bill is not changing. Is that a local governing body has to provide either local share of major education aid, which now includes many of the other, it's not just the foundation program, it's many of the others, or a maintenance of effort amount, which is done on a per pupil basis. So what the bill did, if you go to the next page, the bill is setting up basically a two-part calculation. The first is it's adjusting maintenance of effort to use either the fiscal 2023 MOE or the fiscal 2022 appropriation. After that comparison is done, the winner of that is then compared to the local share of major education aid. If that's higher, then that is what the local government would need to provide in 2023. The final page of this handout shows a chart that puts those numbers in front of you. And you can see step one is looking at the greater of the MOE or the 2022 appropriation, what the result of that step is. That step then carries over to step two and compares it to the local share. And then whichever is greater ends up being what the local governing bodies have to provide. And that's the very final column. The major difference here from what you saw before is Baltimore City is now 313 instead of 309. That is because the guaranteed tax base program was recalculated. Also, there's some very small little tweaks in here to reflect supplemental budget number 4 had some revised enrollment numbers. So we had to redo all of this for that. All of that's now embedded in here. And so the amendments for MOE accomplish the chart on this page.
So I'm reading this right, that if you look at, in step one, fiscal 23 MOE, and compare it to the final result, I guess it could be different, couldn't it, from county to county?
Absolutely, yep.
But in that case, that's where that 40 million is that we've been talking about before, like for Baltimore County, if you look at that,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and then also as talked about last week, on hand number page 5, back to the bill, this backs out that one-time adjustment. This was at MACO's request to ensure that anything additional from this greater, from step 1 effectively, is not incorporated for purposes of calculating 2024. Now, back to the bill as it came over to you on page 7. This adjusts some of the deadlines for the AIB as well as for locals in terms of their implementation plans. Obviously, just to align with, where we are now in terms of, the veto override and the AIB getting underway, so that changes those. On page 9, this, again, dealing with just the passage of time and where we are today, it clarifies the authority of the AIB in terms of withholding and releasing funds for fiscal 23. This would require them that if they've met the minimum guidelines in terms of submitting the implementation plan, then they would release the funds. Right there in the middle of the page, it delays the implementation of the college and career readiness standards. Then at the bottom of the page, part of the operating budget negotiations led to a plan for the blueprint fund to do a one-time transfer of $800 million to, again, kind of capitalize the fund so that it will pay for the expenditures for longer than currently. So that would accomplish that. On hand numbered page 10, it does shift, as was testified, that originally the blueprint fund was going to be from digital products, marketplace facilitator, and out-of-state vendor. Instead, those sources of funding are no longer distributed to the blueprint fund, and instead it substitutes a percentage of the sales and use tax. And that is reflected lines 22 through 27. And what that does is, what these percentages equate to is in line 22 for fiscal 23, that would be an additional $800 million. Then through 23 through 27, that percentage amount equates to an additional $100 million each year that would go into the blueprint fund.
Everybody understand what happened there? Yeah? Remember in our plan, which the Senate came out with and the House came along with and the governor came along with, we, as Erica said, we capitalize the blueprint plan by by 800 million more dollars. But then we changed the flow, right? Because it was always we were always gonna have a flow of annual contributions, to build up the fund over the course of time. And we've changed that flow to $100 million effectively a year, ongoing. For what it's worth, a lot of the strategy behind that was, given our great commitment to education, this will give us also an opportunity for structural capacity to do other things that we care about, including a lot of the things that we included in the plan, which had to do with healthcare, the provider rates that went up, a dental program that we have, a whole host of things that we're able to more comfortably do that, knowing that we're going to have the one-time capitalization, and then still a commitment, a multi-year commitment to add to the fund, but a little less to be able to give us the structural capacity. Okay?
And then just the final substantive thing is, you'll recall with the sports gaming package, a certain amount of that was sent to schools for certain purposes. This just allows them to keep that if they haven't been able to spend it in the time frame given.
And back to the percentages and such on there, I know it sounds maybe a little confusing, but really all we're really doing is we get assigned the marketplace facilitator and a couple other things to pay for the blueprint. It became cumbersome to try to figure out from the comptroller's perspective where actually money was coming from. So instead of doing that, we got rid of all that and then just established a percentage that accomplished the same goal of the whole entire of the sales tax. Thank you, Erica. Is that?
That's it. Yep, that completes the
That's all
reprint.
that build up. I mean, I know our school systems are all very anxious to see this because it's conforming the requests or the recommendations of the AIB to the time frame process that had to be modified for the school systems to accomplish their goals and get out their plans and all those kinds of things, given the fact that we lost a year with the veto. And it has the overarching issue of when the major planning process is due, but then it's got the smaller issue embedded inside it of the
career and
career
college readiness.
career and college readiness plan also is modified timing too, which will help our local jurisdictions accomplish what they need to do to stay in line with the goals of the blueprint.
Question. So the House is taking this bill exactly as it is, correct? And so we won't be taking any amendments on it tomorrow, when it gets to the floor? What are you thinking?
I can't imagine, I can think of an amendment. We just heard that the Prince George's County concern seems to be alleviated, so.
On the other bill.
Oh, on the other bill, I'm
okay.
sorry, apologize. Yeah, I
Yeah.
apologize. But on this one, I can't imagine that it would have to be something pretty extraordinary.
Don't need any, right, okay.
Before we would accept an amendment from the
Okay.
floor. Okay. Is there a motion?
Favorable.
All those in favor as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Okay, now we're going to move on to Matt, who has 4 bills that we have to get through.
So, House Bill 891 is an exact match cross.
We don't have any of these in front of us, do we?
None are amended.
What's that?
No, there are no amendments to any of them.
Okay, are they matches with us?
2 of them are, and one we're just tacking on a termination provision.
Okay, well, let's learn about them.
All right. House Bill 891 is a cross-file of the Chair's Bill 593, This is the Department of Transportation and Spending Affordability Committee reporting requirements. It makes tweaks to the dates that the Spending Affordability Committee has to report certain information, and then requires the Department of Transportation to include certain information in the CTP.
Yeah, if you remember, this is a minor change just with the Spending Affordability Committee to get more information, mostly about transportation issues that be included in the report the Spending Affordability Committee makes every year. It's in preparation and dealing with our new responsibilities under question 1 for next year. All those in favor? Opposed?
The second bill is House Bill 438. It's a cross-file of Senate Bill 463. This is the WMATA funding bill. It altered the funding formulas for WMATA for the out years. If you'll recall, the amendments that were agreed to pushed the funding formulas out. I believe it was 2026, 2027, and 2028 are when the changes are all going to take place.
But this was a 3% accelerator change from the base, the original base, to the new base, to the new, I don't know what you call them, the other,
The capital appropriation.
the capital
that was.
appropriation.
The
Okay,
bills
so
are in the
exact-
the House bill's same position as.
Okay,
same
remember
posture.
your votes, everybody, I know. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, raise your hand. Okay?
The next bill is one that you heard today. There is no Senate cross-file. This is Speaker Jones' bill. This was the African American Heritage Preservation Program. If you recall, the program is funded at $1 million. The bill would require that it move up to $5 million a year. And then it also repeals a matching requirement, and then allows the agency to change policies so the grants can be more than $100,000 a year.
All right. All those
HB
in,
1088.
all those in favor? Opposed? Okay?
And the final bill is House Bill 1055. This bill was not cross-filed, but the bill was gutted as it came out of the House, and the identical bill that the Senate had, the Maryland Transit Administration, Transit Services for Public School Children in Baltimore City, and the Youth Works program, was inserted into this bill. The bill is in the exact same posture as the Senate bill, except for the 5-year sunset that the Senate bill had on it. So the Senate bill was Senate Bill 862. So I've got an amendment that'll add a 5-year sunset on the program. Again, it just requires that MTA continue to provide ridership to the public school students, and now will also provide ridership to the Baltimore City Youth Works program participants.
Okay. As amended with the Senate, with the Senate amendment. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, 4 down.
Big ones, though.
Those were the 4.
You have one, don't you?
Yeah.
What do you got?
House Bill 740. This is an exact match cross-file to Senate Bill 566. This is a Joint Committee on Pensions bill that codifies the fiduciary obligation to consider climate risk in the system's investments.
Okay. We all know this bill. We know how we voted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, raise your hand. Okay. Senator Elfreth, do we have a bill that we want to amend and get moving?
We would like to take. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it might be best to take a day on it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Did we get all the must-dos for now?
Yeah, and then we come back to school construction, but
Oh, right.
Ross is getting the answer and he's on his way up.
I think they're fine with it.
Okay, is he? Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we're all good on school construction, senators? Okay, so it was amended, right?
correct?
Okay, so this is as amended.
Favorable.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, Senator King. All yours. All right. We can move back. Has anybody got their, the last supplemental on them?
It's on my desk.
What? Yeah, 798, this vendor collection credit, we're gonna modify this bill, but I think the governor put $1 million into their Excel center, which was in the supplemental, if I'm not mistaken. We're looking for something, we're looking for something called the Excel Center, Goodwill. It should be in there.
Goodwill stuff?
Yeah.
Gonna do a word find here, should be fast. Excel.
And it's like E-C-E-L-L, E-cell, X, something, I don't know, something. No?
Not under that spelling.
Go to here.
Under what agency?
Let me see if I can find it. Mark. So, we've been trying, and, this is also connected to priorities that this president had about trying to get folks, adults, their high school diplomas. And this entity out there, and I've tried to do it using this sales and use tax collection credit. Don't think it's going to move on the other side. The governor did put $1 million in. I'd like to throw them a little bit more money because I think they are really getting to a place where they can actually do something. So, how about we do $500,000 more? Let's see if maybe we do it for 2 years.
So moved.
Okay, everybody good with that? All right, all those in favor, we're turning it into a grant,
For
Yeah.
fiscal year '24?
24 and 25, $500,000 each year.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
What's that? This is 798, next one on the list.
And the bill doesn't have what's the name of the organization? Or
It's
should we?
the Goodwill Excel Center,
Okay,
if you want to link it to this, to the
I'll get you what you need, Matt.
okay, you've got the page?
Yep.
Great.
page 34, item 139. Okay. We're next one. We didn't take a vote yet? Really? We didn't take a vote?
Let's vote again, so
It's fun to vote, isn't it? Okay, all those in favor as amended, as described a minute ago? For 798? Opposed? Okay. All right, let's see if we can figure this one out. This, Philip, are you ready to deal with this one? 836, the cloud-based.
There's a reprint if you want to.
See, if I recall, this was an unusual bill in the sense that it was coming in basically directing the department to do an RFP.
Correct.
And I felt a little bit uncomfortable about that. And I know that others expressed some concern about that. So I'll let Philip describe it. We modified it to hopefully have them move in the direction, but I'll let you
Right,
describe
so-
it.
Yeah, so in that context, the amendments, instead of requiring an RFP, it directs Department of Information Technology to develop a plan for implementing a device as service model. You'll see that change on page 1, down in lines 18 through 20. And then, in terms of the other provisions that were in there that were gonna be included in the RFP, it's modifying that language to make sure that that's included as either part of the plan or considerations in developing the plan. And then on page 2, added a report, due August 1st, 2023, report of the plan to you all, the General Assembly. And then, December 15, 2023, a report on implementation, which would include estimated timelines for major implementation milestones, and then adding a 2-year sunset to the legislation, since it's uncodified language.
Okay? Everybody understand it? Yep. Is there a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Senator Quarterman, get off quiet down there. You can't stay completely quiet in this committee.
Chairman, I second your motion.
All right. 860.
That's me. Senate Bill 860. I think you have a reprint on your desk.
Now, I mean, if you could help me out here, Erica, is this tie, didn't they tie these two bills together in the House with another bill?
I mean, they passed them separately.
They did pass them separately.
Yeah.
I felt like somebody came and talked about them together. They did today. Somehow why did they talk about them together?
Yeah, they did.
Yep, there's House Bill 1039.
Yeah, so you have the House bill and you have the Senate bill. But I think you were talking about the other agriculture one.
No, I was talking about the other community solar.
That's what I meant, yeah, the other community solar. They're not linked in terms of how they're structured, but they obviously deal with the same basic topic, just in a different way.
Okay?
So you have both the House bill and the Senate bill in front of you today. They are both amended to be the same. So we can just look at the Senate bill. So this one, hold on a second, I'm gonna regather my thoughts here. So this one deals with agricultural property that is still being used as agricultural, but at the same time is being used for solar power generation. So in that scenario, basically for the energy generating system that's placed in service after June 30th, 2022, it would create that they are exempt from the personal property tax. So it's related, but it's also still being used as agricultural land.
Gotcha. Okay, how are we feeling about this bill? Senator Edwards.
Yeah, this is similar to the bill that Senator Alfred's had, I think, community solar, whatever. I know this talks about agricultural, so I'm assuming these are up high, so you can move cows underneath of them, or pigs, or whatever. But it has the same wording as the other one, which I got amended out, number 3 there, mine land is defined in Comar. Because if you look at page 3, again, this is the first time I'm really looking at this. It says personal property is exempt from county or municipal corporation property tax if the property is machinery or equipment that is part of the community solar energy generating system that is used for agrivoltaics, is that how you say that? Or is installed on a rooftop, brownfield, landfill, or clean field. So if you read those two together, then that number 2 there tells me it can be another kind of voltaics versus agrivoltaics. It could be put on a brownfield. Or am I reading that wrong?
I think you're reading that correctly.
Which I'll go back to why I took,
This is when you talked to me about the amendment on.
yeah. Why I took the mining part out, because we do, this would be considered a utility kind of a thing if you're talking bigger ones. And, we do tax personal property on utilities, although we don't, there's 4 categories, we don't do the other 3. So I would suggest we amend that out just like we did the other one and take mine lands as defined in Comar out of there, number 3. I don't think it screws it up, so to speak,
Yeah, I don't think so either.
to be consistent with, and I don't know where the other bill's at. Did the House do anything with it? To keep the 2 consistent? Because again, as I read it, for once, read it right, that they could install other kinds of voltaics on mine lands.
Okay,
Not that they're gonna do it, but they could, so I would, suggest that we amend number 3 out on page 2,
I agree with you.
just that sentence,
okay.
or, yeah, just that line.
Yes.
As amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll also pass, and we'll also amend HB 1039, the same posture. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
It was, we heard it today, Senator. Nine 13.
Okay, you have a reprint for this one as well. Actually, no, you don't, because I was just gonna mention it, verbally. Or maybe you do, I forget. Do you have a reprint for Senate Bill 913? Okay, great, it's an easy amendment anyway. All right, so what this one does is it would establish, basically a grant for what the bill refers to as the Solderly Plantation. The grant would be for 3 years and $500,000.
A year.
A year for each of those years, that's right. So, I got a call, I think it might have been this morning, to change the name from Solderly Plantation to instead Historic Solderly, which is their proper name, so that would be the amendment that they are requesting you guys take.
Is there a house?
So, yeah, so you also, and I think you just heard it today, House Bill 602. What they did in the House is, instead of 500 for each of those 3 years, they did 350 for 24, 375 for 25, and then 400 for 2026.
They're clever over there.
Really pinching pennies.
They're very clever. Look, I think we should do something for this. I think it's a good facility. I was gonna suggest cutting it. I don't wanna go back and forth 100 times with them, though. If everybody's okay with those numbers.
So moved.
Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I remember the testimony very well, and originally, I think the way they described it is it would need capital funding, and it really doesn't. It's all operating. The synopsis was the way, anyway, they had it, the definition wrong, so it's all operating. I would second it.
Very good.
So using the House funding,
Yes,
but also changing the name.
correct, and we'll and then we'll change theirs to conform to ours.
Got it.
Senator Jackson, you wanna do that?
Yes. Thank you. We're doing the House breakdown, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
So that's Senate Bill 913 and House Bill 602.
Okay.
You need to actually vote it.
What's that?
You didn't vote it.
Voting? I keep missing the voting. All right, all those in favor of both of those bills and in the same posture with the amendments? Opposed? Okay. Okay. I want to hear about what people think about this one. 923.
Senate Bill 923 deals with the distribution of local impact grants from video lottery terminals. The money from video lottery terminals is distributed to local impact grants. It's 5.5% of the revenues from video lottery terminals. The distribution schedule starts with some off-the-top numbers, and so there's money that doesn't flow through the formula. Right now, one of those off-the-top numbers is grant to the town of Forest Heights for $120,000 each year. This bill would increase the amount of that $120,000 to $250,000 each year for the town of Forest Heights.
Senator,
Who does it take money away from?
somebody else.
I know, but who? As the formula works.
What's that?
Takes it out of the formula.
Oh, so the fiscal note has
Sounds like we
has
were
where
talking
the
earlier.
reductions are. So the formula is a bit complicated. If you'll recall, there's 18% that for 32 years goes over to the Pimlico the Pimlico Local Development Corporation. And then there's the 82% that gets split between the three jurisdictions that have the large casinos. That's Anne Arundel, Prince George's, and Baltimore City. But remember, Anne Arundel for 18 years has a hold harmless clause that doesn't let Anne Arundel ever get less than 18.4 million. So Anne Arundel doesn't lose any money. The money that the losers would be Prince George's and Baltimore City, and the Pimlico Local Development Corporation.
It's $130,000, right, annually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they're losing, Prince George's would be out $35,000, and Baltimore City would be out $58,000. $23,000 of the Baltimore City money, though, goes to the Pimlico Community Development. So it's not a whole lot of money.
Right, okay, I got it. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, the formula is really complicated, and
I see.
Senator McCray?
The
I
town
think
Forest
that
Heights is.
obviously we
Prince
see similar bills like this every year put in by the sponsor. I think it's respectful because this is actually in the 40th legislative district. And I do believe that there were historical agreements in reference to how they got where they were. This didn't just come out of nowhere when we were having a conversation of gaming. So I just, if you all are in the posture, I would like to hold it and just get a better idea with the senator from the 40th legislative district.
Perfectly fine,
Yep.
perfectly fine. All right. 974.
974, you should have a reprint on your desk with amendments from the sponsor. As introduced, the bill would have required the Department of Natural Resources to exchange real property that they hold with private property under certain conditions. The amendments before you from the sponsor strike those provisions as introduced and establish authorizing language whereby the state may exchange property owned by the Department of Natural Resources for a private owner's real property if the property owned by the state does not exceed 2 acres and the owner requesting the exchange pays all the costs associated with the exchange of the property. This process would also be subject to Board of Public Works approval.
All right, you remember this one's about the barn that was on the state land and it's been sold, a couple of the property's been sold multiple times. Nobody picked up on the fact that this barn was hanging over on the state property and
Yeah.
now they're trying to resolve the issue and I believe there's an understanding that the state's actually gonna end up with a bigger piece of property if they give up the rights to the smaller piece that they happen to be encroached on. Is that all accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that was the testimony, but, and I would note, the bill as introduced had some conditions on the property eligible for this. The amendment, the only condition is that the real property owned by the state does not exceed 2 acres. However, all this is going through the BPW process for approval, and it's only authorizing, so I would assume that any potential issues with not having kind of more, the more closely defined parameters would be addressed in the BPW process.
Okay.
But I'd
Everybody
wanna-
understand what we got? Senator?
I mean, I do have 2 areas in my district that they have private land and they have state land. And they take care of this land. But every 5 years, they get a contract to take this land and take care of it. I don't know, and it's by Todd's Inheritance in Fort Howard. And I don't know if this will be a problem with them. I don't know because I'm trying to understand this bill. As my good friend Senator Rosenpep always says, I'm trying to wrap my mind around right now. But
I think it just authorizes the state to engage to an agreement with another landowner.
Yeah, and I believe so the language lead-in of the new language says, if an owner of real property requests to exchange, so I would interpret that as the initial kickoff point would be the private property
Private property.
owner initiating a request, and then at DNR's discretion, they would do it. So the bill no longer requires the exchange, and it would have to be initiated by the private
owner.
property owner, not
okay.
the state.
I got you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay? Everyone understand the bill as amended? All's in favor? Opposed? Senator Edwards, you look like you like this bill. Senator Zucker, you ready, can you take the prior auth bill yet?
I just had one. Where's Matt? Okay. Okay, Matt?
Matt, we're on the prior auth bill right now.
Matt, no, I just had a question. So the prior auth bill makes changes to former authorizations for legislative bond initiatives or miscellaneous budget. Sometimes it changes the grantee's name, it extends the life of the bond initiative. Matt, the question I had is, Senator McCray pulled me aside and said that there was some prior authorizations with easements. I think the House is gonna take care of that. Is that your understanding? Remember we sent something over?
That is my understanding. Matt Klein asked me for some language we had used
Got
to
it.
block
So we'll,
easements.
yep. So I'll move favorable on this. We just need to get it out of the Senate and then the House will. Good? Okay. Move favorable.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. That's 1009. 1009. And we have yet another special guest in the committee today. April?
Ready for me?
So it is our responsibility to quickly look at this climate bill. And I will ask the committee to keep focus on budgetary items if they have changed. This is the House coming back at us, is that right?
That's correct.
All right, what do we got?
So this is Senate Bill 528, the Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022. There are a number of amendments, so probably the easiest way, if you want to follow along, would be to pull these up either on your floor system or just on the MGA website. And I will start.
Is there a way, can you delineate which ones have a financial impact?
I will, yeah, I'll try to focus on those as much as possible. So again, the question here is concur or not to concur with the House amendments. I will let you know that the Environment, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee has just voted to concur with these amendments. So, big picture, what the House has done with their initial amendments, first of all, they have struck all the provisions from the bill regarding landfill methane emissions. There had initially been provisions in the Senate bill dealing with both the monitoring of emissions as well as emissions regulations. Those have come out. There are various changes to terminology and definitions related to the environmental justice provisions of the bill. Those do not have a financial impact, though. They have struck the establishment of the Climate Justice Corps as a freestanding corps and have instead wrapped it in with the existing Chesapeake Conservation Corps. However, they have maintained the $1.5 million appropriation, but have directed it to go specifically towards the sort of climate justice related projects which are under this new sort of expanded mandate of the Chesapeake Conservation Corps.
Okay.
They have struck from the bill provisions relating to high performance buildings. So you may recall that the original Senate bill had required new 100% state-funded buildings to be constructed to be net zero, if possible. That is out of the bill. They have altered the Empower Maryland annual energy savings percentage goals. They've actually made them a little bit less ambitious. They've established a new electric school bus pilot program and established certain state policy goals related to that program. But that pilot program, the idea is actually to largely have public utilities companies actually providing grants to school systems to use for electric school buses, but in exchange to be able to use those school buses during the off season as sort of backup storage batteries for the electric grid. They have altered provisions in the bill that require primary procurement units to ensure that at least 75% of electricity supply is derived from, the initial bill said low carbon renewable energy sources. They have changed that to no or low carbon energy sources. Presumably the idea there would be to authorize nuclear. They have also struck the provisions of the bill establishing a requirement that each local school jurisdiction construct at least one net zero energy school, and they've similarly struck the provision setting up a grant program for that. Instead, what they have done is they, through one of the floor amendments, have added language from a bill that originally came through appropriations that would add a 5% increase to the state cost share for those local jurisdictions that choose to build a school to be net zero energy. So again, that gets rid of that grant program and the appropriations associated with the grant program, but would increase the state share of funding for those types of schools. Finally, their amendments have made kind of various changes related to the building retrofit provisions of the initial bill. The major changes include increasing the minimum size of covered buildings from 25,000 square feet to 35,000 square feet, so apply to fewer buildings in the state. They've exempted manufacturing buildings from the standards. They've altered the interim reduction goal to be 20% reduction by 2030 instead of the Senate bill had originally said 30% by 2035. They've struck language that was actually added in the Senate through a floor amendment that would have required school buildings, which are exempt from those standards, to collect and submit benchmarking data. They've taken that out. They have also struck language that would have explicitly authorized local jurisdictions to apply, to adopt more stringent building energy performance standards. The bill is now silent on that question. And those are the sort of the major big picture changes. The floor amendments, many of them are sort of technical and clarifying. I've already mentioned that 5% cost share increase for the net zero schools that was added. They added some members to some of the work groups. And finally, there was a floor amendment to require the Department of the Environment to take into consideration the use of biofuels by covered buildings when they're developing the building energy performance standards.
Senator Eckert?
Thank you very much. Who did they add to the work groups, and did they take anybody out of the work groups?
So they haven't taken anybody out of any of the work groups. Additions, so they added, one of the floor amendments added the Secretary of Transportation or a designee to the Just Transition Employment Retraining Working Group. They've actually also created, I'm sorry, I sort of glossed over this part. They've created 3 new working groups under the Maryland Commission on Climate Change. So there's an Energy Industry Revitalization Working Group to look at sort of small businesses in industries that could be affected by sort of the transition away from fossil fuels. They've added an Energy Resilience and Efficiency Working Group. They've also added a Solar Photovoltaic Systems Recovery, Reuse, and Recycling Working Group. So if you want, I can pull up those amendments, but those all have sort of.
But they didn't assign members to it. They just added those as a part of the existing work groups? Or did they prescribe the membership?
They do prescribe the membership because those are working groups under the Commission on Climate Change, but the way those working groups have traditionally sort of functioned in the past, it is through sort of outside people being invited to sort of inform the work of the Commission on Climate Change. So those work groups do, I mean, they include representatives from affected industries, from utilities, and things like that.
Okay. So the existing infrastructure people are at the table with that. Oh, good. That's better. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the update. Two questions. The first question, could you speak a little more regarding the nuclear energy component? One of my districts happens to have Calvert Cliffs.
Sure. So, and I will say this is a slightly, I'd say almost a difference of approach from the original Senate bill and the House bill. The original Senate bill was very conscientiously silent on the question of sort of electrical sources. And part of that was the nature of the bill was just because it was coming through EHE in this committee and not through the Finance Committee, sort of not wanting to wade into those questions. The House bill sort of, because it actually went through their Environment and Transportation Committee and their Economic Matters Committee, which does deal with utilities, does address nuclear a little bit more specifically. And so some of the places where it does that, they have added language regarding the development of the statewide greenhouse gas emissions reduction planning to specifically say that that plan should, and again, none of this actually says kind of nuclear specifically, but it says that the plan, find the exact language, shall include policy recommendations to ensure the continued operation of Maryland's existing zero-carbon emission electric generators through current operating licenses. So that's a reference to nuclear. The other addition is...
And where is that?
So that is, it's in the, it's going to be in the Environment and Transportation Committee amendments. So it's amendment number 493028/1. And it is,
Oh, I'll find it.
yeah, it's on page 4 of those amendments.
Okay.
So it appears there, and then the other place where they have added it specifically, just off the top of my head, is the original bill had talked about, from a procurement standpoint, the state moving towards acquiring for state use in state buildings, ramping up to at least 75% of electricity purchases being from, the original bill had said low-carbon renewable energy sources. They've modified that to say no or low-carbon energy sources. They've taken out that word renewable, so that would expand it potentially to the use of nuclear.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then second, if I might, Mr. Chairman, the mention of the utilities weighing in on the electric buses.
Sure. So that is, what they've done essentially is they have added in, and I'm less familiar with this bill because it does not typically come through our committee, but they've added in language from House Bill 696, which would establish an electric school bus pilot program.
Right.
So if you want, or more interested in that, you can look up that bill, and that's the same
All
provisions.
right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, how we doing? Anything else? All right. All those in favor of concurring with the changes that have come from the House?
Aye.
Opposed? Huh? Ring the bells. Yeah, what are our numbers?
Close.
Yes. You want to explain your vote?
No, I had a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Concurring with the amendments, to adopt the amendments is just bringing the amendments on, and then we would vote on the bill, is that correct?
I think we're just concurring with the bill as
Oh, with
amended.
All right.
It's been approved by you.
I think the amendments make it better.
Yeah, still not good enough. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't sure that I caught the fiscal implications of the overall package, and do we know that?
It
or-
sounded like there was some cuts, but then there was that one increase for the school grant program,
The 5%.
5%.
And so we couldn't really monetize that or figure out what that would be at this point. Until we see
Probably it'd be difficult because it is part of another bill, but that other bill has other provisions in it. It's also a little difficult to know how many schools would take advantage of that. I did talk to Appropriations Council because that particular amendment, I think the idea came out of a work group that Chair McIntosh had been working on this past summer. And they estimate that it would work out to be roughly $1.4 million per school that takes advantage of it.
And it's prospective, correct? So
Correct.
it's not any schools that are already planned, or for example, in my district, there's a school that's being built now, and so this would not impact them in any way whatsoever. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do I have another question?
Would you like
Or
another?
be good?
Huh?
I said.
I think we're good.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
we're good. All right, once again, concur.
Aye.
Those opposed? So, I think we were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4. What?
I'm sorry, she's giving a roll. Who was it again?
The 4, was part, and then. Oh, Senator Young is a yes. Senator Young is also a yes, so we're an 8. 8 to 4, and Senator McCray can vote later. Very good, thank you, we
Yeah,
appreciate it
thank
very
you.
much. All right, let's crank a couple more, maybe. I think we can get to a couple. All right, 438. Matt? Yeah. Did we do it already? Okay. How about 740?
We did that.
We did both of them already?
You did 740.
Okay,
hold on,
and,
744.
and 44?
Holding that one.
Holding that. Okay, we did the Lutke bill. We did the McIntosh bill. Did we do 1055?
Did 1055?
We did?
Yes.
Okay, we did 1088. 1228, I don't think we did.
No, 1228's in the same posture as Senate Bill 830. This was the oyster, the oyster spat, the new program. This one we are secondary on. EAG is primary. The bill's in the same posture as Senate Bill 830 that already passed the committee.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Senator Elfreth. Are we second over here too?
You're secondary here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
On both bills?
EAG would be taking that to the floor.
Okay, and then, the last bill, the Russia bill? I guess, is that just the same thing?
It's an exact match cross file to
Favorable.
Senate Bill
All those in
1005.
favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? Okay, I think we did it. We got through the list for today. And only 5 minutes later than I thought. You're a bunch of winners.
No kidding.
How do you mean that?
Well, especially those who got bills assigned to them. You are the big winners. I think what we were missing, Kim, 155 Zucker, I guess I'll take the 1450. Jackson has 913. Edwards has 974. I think all the other ones are clear. Is that right?
Who is 974?
974 is Edwards. All right, that's some good work. Everybody take the night off.
Oh, what a big deal you are.
I don't know. What will be on the floor tomorrow? We're gonna try to get the,
Well, that was my next question to you. Obviously, the early presentment ones will have to be.
yeah. A good chunk of them, yep. Yep.
I mean, the Senate bills plus early presentment.
Senate bills for sure. Senate bills, yep. Just, if you got one, be prepared. That's the rules.
And then we should assume that we'll come in between sessions if we're in session tomorrow.
Yeah, we can assume that we will be voting again tomorrow.
Do we have any more hearings or?
Do we have more hearings? Yeah.
Yeah.
We have more
Your
hearings.
last bill hearings
Ever?
so far.
All right. Tomorrow is the day. All right. Good job, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, fun.